Staying on this topic, our next guest says they have been trying to get to the bottom of what they refer to as the big Iran lie, doing that for 5 years now. Jordan Sekulow is a Newsmax contributor, executive director of the American Center for Law and Justice, and member of President Trump's legal team. Jordan, good to see you as always. First of all, tell the viewers, absolutely, tell the viewers if you can, what is, as you call, the big Iran lie?
So it goes back to Jen Psaki's time as State Department spokesperson, and this was there was a press conference like usual with the State Department, and when it was put back up online and posted, there was what the State Department called a glitch, but what everyone knew from our media department here at the ACLJ was an edit, and it was an edit on exactly when the Obama administration began negotiating with Iran on the initial nuclear deal, because the Obama administration told the American people, Jen Psaki including that, and said that it was started not until Rouhani was elected, so they had nothing to do with the Ahmadinejad, the very radical Ahmadinejad presidential regime there in Iran, and they waited till there was a, quote, more moderate Iranian leader to start working with. But now we know evidence has been uncovered. And we had journalists' response. We've got this new FOIA information that Jake Sullivan, who is now the NSA director at the White House, so he's the head of the National Security Advisor. He's the head National Security Advisor to President Biden. Jen Psaki's at the White House, and a court we got these documents via FOIA. It's been 5 years, and it's an email exchange with Jen Psaki and a reporter about Jake Sullivan leaving a Clinton trip in 2012 to go meet with the Iranians. What would that mean? That the Obama-Biden administration was negotiating with Ahmadinejad, who was, again, someone who goes back as far back as holding Americans hostage during the 1979 revolution there.
So I guess a couple questions here. Why this attempt for such a cozy relationship with Iran and the U.S.? What's really behind that? And then secondly, how of note is it that John Kerry has met with foreign leaders behind closed doors, potentially during the Trump administration?
Yeah, so I think on the first point, they totally disagree, this Obama-Biden team, and now they're back in place, just like I said. So Jen Psaki went from State Department spokesperson to White House press secretary. Jake Sullivan moves up to the National Security Advisor. He was an advisor to Secretary Clinton at the time, who was starting this. I think the idea is it's directly opposed to what the Trump administration did, which was isolate Iran, put Iran in a box, build relationships with the Gulf states, do what like the Abraham Accords, sanction them heavily, and don't try to appease them. Just put them into an economic downfall where they, take out their leader like Soleimani, their terrorist wing, the Revolutionary Guard, and weaken them. And in the Obama-Biden administration approach is appeasement. So how do we get back to the table? Even while these rocket strikes are occurring back and forth, you'll see in their statements, well, we don't want to escalate things. We don't want to go too far. We want to go face to face with the Iranians. And the Iranians, they're used to this team. They're saying, well, we'll play it hardball. We're not going to go face to face until you lift the sanctions. So we're not going to comply with the nuclear deal, which is bad enough. But we're also not going to let you negotiate with us until you lift the sanctions. So that has to be a precursor. It's an exact opposite view of how to deal with the Iranian regime, and I think a very dangerous one that goes way back to the 2012, 2013 when they were initially putting this deal together, and now John Kerry working with the Iranians, undermining the Trump administration at the end of the Trump term to try and reinstate this deal.
I want to ask you about this, too. I know your organization is also fighting against what you're describing as a massive power grab in the Senate. What are you most worried about? What are you most concerned about?
Well, the Senate has a parliamentarian. That parliamentarian rules on issues when there's questions about legislation, especially what we're talking about with H.R. 1, this huge stimulus package. Call it what you will. It's supposed to be about COVID. It's not much about COVID. But we do want to see that COVID relief get to Americans at the ACLJ. We just don't like a lot of what else is in here. And the parliamentarian ruled that you can't do the minimum wage increase through budget reconciliation. You could pass a law. You can go through the normal process, but not through this process. And now you've got the far left progressives in the Senate saying, well, we should either overrule, because Kamala Harris could overrule as president pro tem, as president of the Senate, overrule the parliamentarian, or fire the parliamentarian. This would be unheard of. And if imagine Republicans doing this to get something through. You could see the outcry of, oh, let's just fire that person, or we'll just override them, even though they are really like the court. And really, their decision should be final.
Interesting. All right, before I let you go, I've got to ask you about this. Just breaking, we're learning that House Democrats, they've reissued a subpoena to Trump's accounting firm for financial records. As we know now, New York prosecutors already have his tax returns. What else are they looking for, Jordan?
Well, this is the interesting thing. He's no longer president. So what is the congressional oversight role here? It's one thing for a New York State prosecutor, and the Supreme Court said, and while he was president, basically put stays on all of that. And it's not public. It's going to a grand jury. If that gets released at all to the public, they violated a lot of rules, and they could be in serious trouble if it gets leaked. But the House committee, to go after now a private citizen to still get these records to us, we'll see how Mazars responds. That's who it went to, as the tax accounting firm. But again, they're going to have to explain themselves about why do they believe they need this information, especially due to the fact that the president is no longer in office. How do they still have any role, any oversight over a private citizen?
All right, we'll leave it right there. Jordan Sekulow, always full of information. Good to see you, Jordan, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sean.